Hi, this is Jack Stanley, and today is May the 3rd, 2020, and we've been in lockdown since March 15th. In another 10 days, it'll be 2 months. It's really quite fascinating, this whole coronavirus, this COVID-19, as many people use to describe it, how it has taken on political ramifications. The interesting thing about the United States, and we don't talk about it too much, is that we have always been divided in our thoughts and our ideas and our basic beliefs. If you go all the way back to the beginnings of this country, at the time of the Constitution, which goes into effect 1788, 1789, and we have our first president in 1789, George Washington, and in his administration, he's more or less elected by acclamation. But if you look at his second term, in his second term, all hell breaks loose. In there, of course, you have Thomas Jefferson and Alexander Hamilton. They have very, very different beliefs in how government should operate, how government should be looked upon, and how government should take care of the people. And of course, war broke out in Washington's cabinet. And there were attacks on Washington from James Madison and Jefferson and many of what we called the Republicans. And of course, on the Federalist side, which George Washington had strongly become, they battled against. And you had Alexander Hamilton there battling against the Republicans. You had John Jay and a number of other individuals. In fact, Patrick Henry eventually would become more a Federalist than a Republican. But the interesting thing of it all is that throughout this country, we've had this kind of division. And if you look through our history, we had the Federalists and the Republicans. And of course, the Republicans were more or less the House of Jefferson, and of course, the Federalists were the House of Hamilton. And as time went on, the Republicans became the Democratic Republicans and eventually dropped Republican altogether. And they became more involved in like the farm base, the South. And the Federalists seemed to be more toward the North in industry. And as time went by, the Federalist Party kind of imploded. And it collapsed. In fact, during the administration of James Monroe, you didn't even have an opposing party. Now, of course, finally, after a while, the Federalists morphed into what was called the Whigs. And the Whigs were not quite as extreme as the Federalists, but they were still much further to the right than the Democrats were. As time went on, the Whig Party kind of collapsed, and there were a lot of splinter parties as well, and they all gathered together and created what was called the Republican Party. This was in the 1850s, and the Republican Party was anti-slavery, at least anti to the fact of the expansion of slavery. The Democratic Party was very much supportive of slavery. And of course, our country kind of fell apart upon party lines in many regards. And we had a civil war. And as time went on, we repaired the nation. We've worked together. But we've always had the right and the left. And here we are in the year 2020. And this whole thing is going on with the coronavirus and COVID-19. And today with the internet, everybody has a bubble. It's fascinating because the far left has a bubble, the far right has a bubble, the centrists have bubbles on the internet. And on the internet, in news programs, you've got commentators and thoughts and ideas that all fit within the framework of that bubble that fits left. And there is just as much a bubble for those on the right. And you have commentators and ideas and thoughts and plans that fit that ideology. And then you have those that are somewhat in the middle. And you've always had this. So here we are, dealing with a situation that has become not only a virus, but also a political disaster area. And everyone's fighting back and forth over this situation. And it just shows how we have stayed the same after all these years. We will always have left and a right and a center. And we will battle for as long as this country exists. You know, the thing is that it's good for us, actually, as a republic to have that. Because if we ever went to just one party or one ideology, we wouldn't advance. Because if you have one idea system, there's nothing to challenge that idea system. And so it's a very, very important thing that we fight it out. You know, it's interesting. I mean, I watch this and I see some of the folks in this one bubble saying we should be free and out and we should not be in quarantine. And then you have the folks in the other bubble saying stay inside. And then you have the ones in the middle going maybe back and forth, which has always been their want. So, just to talk about this just for a few moments, it's a fascinating thing to look at. And you know, in the future, when they do the history of all of this, there will be the talk of the left and the right, as it has been with every issue that's ever taken place in this country. Politics is a part of our lives. Our philosophies are a part of our lives. They never seem to quite agree. But I must say, at this point in time, it's very hard to picture the United States more divided than it is at this very time.